The cast this season is officially insane, and things just keep getting messier and messier. We just had a huge blindside in the game, leaving Cedric evicted and confusion everywhere. The house has now been blown apart, and it is pretty much a brand new game as we head into week 5. There is obviously going to be a lot to cover today. We're going to talk about how Cedric's eviction even happened and where the house stands now. But first, before we dive in, please make sure that you're subscribed if you have not already. This season has been a busy one, and the TV edit just does not do this game justice. So if you would like shorter recaps on what actually goes on in the house day to day, this is the channel for you. Now, let's get started. So, as we saw in the last eviction, Cedric was just voted out 6-3. This vote gutted a lot of the house guests, and it surprised a lot of fans as well, because when we last left off, Cedric was looking pretty lock safe. Makensy was actually the target for most of the house, but things were set to get kind of dicey if Makensy ended up winning that AI arena and taking herself off the block, which, as we all saw, she did. So how did Cedric end up getting the boot here? After all, he did have most of the house backing him as allies. But even with that being said, there was still a small but mighty group of people that still wanted to get Cedric out. T'Kor had obviously made an enemy out of Cedric at this point. Makensy was mad because he had just put her on the block. And Leah never really had any close personal or game relationship with Cedric in the first place. So there was already a little resistance to Cedric, but the people who had the most power to actually change things here were T'Kor and Kimo. They didn't want to vote out Rubina at all because they felt really close to her on a personal level, but at the same time, they had a more locked-in majority alliance with Cedric, which was the collective. So they were kind of at an impasse with this whole vote. But here's the thing. See, ever since this whole collective alliance started, T'Kor and Kimo have felt on the bottom of it, which is technically true, because there was the collective as a whole, but then there was also the Pentagon, which was an alliance within that alliance. And even within the Pentagon, we had the Triple Cs, which was technically an alliance within that. So really, when you think about it, T'Kor and Kimo were kind of on the outside of an onion structure here, which obviously isn't a great feeling, but they were still pretty safe in the game. Nobody from either side of the house was really looking to target them there. But still, they felt on the bottom. They felt left out, which is never a good feeling to have. So when T'Kor and kind of Rubina approached them with starting this brand new 5 Points alliance, it was great because now they finally had some other option. So now, armed with a little bit of backup, T'Kor and Kimo start to contemplate about how everything would look if they just blew shit up. At first, Kimo is the main one who is really excited about this flip. He takes some time convincing T'Kor, but eventually she's able to come around. Their initial strategy is to try to get T'Kor and Quinn on the same page for this vote in some capacity, but they quickly realized that that just was not going to work. There's just been so much beef and drama and mess between them that T'Kor and Quinn just have zero interest in working together at this point. My guess is that they were doing this to see if they were able to play the middle and not piss either side off. But the thing is, if you're going to make a big move like this, you just gotta be ready for the pushback. It's Big Brother. It's inevitable. I'm just honestly kind of surprised that they had the balls to go through with this in the first place, you know? T'Kor and Kimo have just been such passive players so far. They're always whispering in corners to each other about what they want to do in the game, but they haven't really taken much action yet until now. And while I love me a good blindside just as much as the next person, I promise y'all I do, but I still don't know if this was really the best move for T'Kor and Kimo's games. I mean, I get that they feel on the bottom, but since there are people like Chelsie and Quinn who are such big, obvious, glaring targets in the game right now, you could easily use them as shields. Honestly, I think Kimo's best move would have been to convince Quinn to put up somebody else on the block instead of Rubina in the first place. You know, someone like Leah, who was just blatantly targeting Quinn anyway. There is a world where they could have gotten through this scot-free while still keeping Rubina and Cedric in the game and not making any enemies whatsoever. But alas, now it is just a beautiful, hot-ass fucking mess. Now, there was also this subplot in the house where the other half of the collective, mainly Chelsie and Brooklyn, were really pushing to get Rubina voted out no matter who she sat next to. Now, they didn't have any beef with Rubina. This was mainly a move to weaken Tucker's game, but as we saw, none of that is going to end up mattering anyway because there was already this push to evict Cedric going on in the meantime. But it is still important to note, especially with what's coming up this next week. So as we saw during the live eviction, there was a lot of scrambling right before the vote. It was hard to follow exactly what was going on, but Kimo did say that they would wait until the very last second to try to bring people in on this flip, and so it looks like that's what they did. Now, they technically didn't need to bring anybody else into this vote. They already had all the numbers they needed, but Leah and Joseph were able to jump ship here too and give them a little bit more backup. We then get to the actual votes where we see that the entire Pentagon has just been completely blindsided. Cedric is evicted, leaving a trail of bitterness and tension in the house. Chelsea's pissed, Quinn's pissed. Really, this whole thing is just Quinn's doing anyway for snitching on his own Pentagon alliance. He thought he could trust T'Kor and Kimo, but he just found out the hard way that he could not.
There was a way that we could have done this and it made sense. But they didn't consult me. And that's what's annoying. Because strategy-wise, whenever we talk strategy, it's like they're just sitting there.
And this is actually Quinn's second time entrusting Kimo with a secret, only to have Kimo turn around and just blow it up anyway. So if I was Quinn, I wouldn't make it a third. After the vote, the tension is thick in the house with everybody just pointing fingers at each other. Chelsie and Brooklyn are trying to wipe their hands clean of the situation by blaming T'Kor and Kimo. They are claiming that Kimo tricked them by switching their vote at the last minute, which is technically true from their perspective.
If you were going to change your mind, you had all day yesterday, all day before to have conversations. And I said, me and Brooklyn are down to go with what the house wants. But when y'all flip with just 30 seconds for us to make a decision, that's unfair to us.
But even if that is the case, T'Kor and Kimo were still loyal to Rubina at the end of the day. So that's really all that's going to matter. Again, I still don't think that blowing up the Pentagon now was the best timing for them. I mean, they did all of this dirty work only to still not be in the best spot in the house. If anything, they have more ops now than before. But they will probably be okay with it for the short time at least, because now it's time for the house guests to all go off to compete in the wall comp. And this competition was short but intense, with it all coming down to Tucker versus Quinn at the end. I am dead serious. I mean, you could not write a better plotline here. And things in the game are about to get even more dramatic because Tucker ends up winning this competition and is now our new HOH. Wow. What a pendulum swing this week, huh? Apparently, Tucker tried to offer Quinn some sort of safety deal before they dropped, but I mean, who knows how legit that would have been. I mean, I kind of sort of believe Tucker because he is the only one crazy enough to keep an enemy like Quinn in the game. And he has talked a lot about respecting Quinn and wanting to still work with them despite their public beef. But again, it's Tucker we're talking about here, so this man could really be up to anything. I'm just personally not gonna blame Quinn at all for not throwing this comp to Tucker, of all people. Now, Tucker has wasted no breath letting us know that Quinn, Brooklyn, and Cam are his biggest targets.
If I could put her up with them, I would, but I gotta do Quinn and then Cam and Brooklyn because Chelsea's not a threat compared to the other ones.
I mean, he was talking about all that last week before any of this crazy nonsense even happened. To the general public, Tucker is telling everybody that Quinn is his target because, duh, that's the obvious move. But in reality, his real target is Miss Brooklyn. You see, Tucker has just never vibed with Brooklyn at all, right? He's never trusted her, and after the way she just voted out Rubina and then tried to blame T'Kor and Kimo for it, that was just the nail in the coffin for her ass. So Brooklyn is actually taking most of the heat from this vote here, mainly because of her reaction to it.
If I was told there was no reason for me not to keep you, even one of them, because they come as a duo.
I know.
If one of them would have gave me an inkling of, no, we're good now because of Joe. We're good. And maybe Leah, I had no clue. She said, Cedric.
Putting the blame on Kimo here is just a really bad move since they voted correctly. I do think that there is a more subtle way that Brooklyn could have soothed Rubina after this whole vote. She maybe could have just came right out and told her about the entire collective alliance and explained to her that that was the reason why she had to vote the way she did, instead of putting the blame on specific people, especially if those specific people are T'Kor and Kimo. Because now Brooklyn just looks hella shady.
Brooklyn knows that. If not you, then I'm close to Tucker. And Rubina, why would you say that? And expect it not to come back to us? That's fucking stupid.
So the feeds are going to go off for the nomination ceremony, and when they come back on, we see that Quinn, Brooklyn, and Cam are indeed on the block together. Brooklyn is still the target, even though she doesn't know that. But of course, it's all going to depend on what happens with the veto. And anything is possible there because Tucker has also informed Quinn that if he won, he would want to use the veto on Quinn to take him off the block. Again, who knows how genuine Tucker is really being here. But if there is anybody in this house that's crazy enough to do something like that, it's Tucker, so we're just gonna have to see. In the meantime, Tucker has also been busy trying to secure a little alliance for himself now that he has some real power in the game. Basically, he has taken that old 5 points alliance and replaced Brooklyn with Joseph and Angela. With that, these 6 make our new majority alliance, 6th Avenue.
Let's do it. Let's just do it. Oh my God, let's just do this.
6th Avenue on 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I think that everybody here is pretty locked in for now, except for T'Kor. She just doesn't completely trust Tucker since he's such a wild card, and he's obviously at the head of this alliance. But I want her to keep holding on because Tucker is the absolute perfect shield for her game right now. So that's all I have for y'all today. I know it was a lot to get to, but all of these little moving pieces are just so damn interesting at the same time. I love the chaos that this Blindside brought, but I absolutely hate that Cedric had to be the casualty. He was definitely one of my favorites in the game, so it really sucked seeing him leave, but he did volunteer to be on the block. So just like with Tucker, it's only fair that I say that he had it coming. He had it coming. He only had himself to blame. And now, hopefully, that was the end of people volunteering to be on the damn block this season. Of course, I'll be back here to update you all with the veto results and whatever other drama these house guests bring this season. But until then, peace.